week on the job.
Okay, there used to be another guy that would call me quite often.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, you too. Good talking to you yesterday.
Try that again.
Test, 2-minute warning.
Yeah, that's true. You're not missing a lot talking to me.
Well, we're glad you're here.
Yeah.
Of course, we do live stream these, so you're
Yeah.
welcome. If you miss them, you can
Okay.
just pick them up that way.
Okay, great.
But I know you want to get great sound bites from Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, that's right. I want all the juicy
You
stuff.
have to come in person to get those.
I'll do some more legwork then.
Hey, I'll tell you this, you got this one and 4 more to get anything from me, and this old boy's, check it out.
No, you're not, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, I am. You need me, call me. You need me, I'll call you.
All right, if I could have your attention, I'm going to call the work session of White County Board of Education for April 9th to order. Appreciate everyone being here and taking this time to go over the items that will be considered for our consent agenda tonight. As always, if there's an item that needs further discussion, let it be known, and we'll pull that out, add that to a new business item in our regular meeting agenda. So we will get started with a review of our board meeting minutes from last month. Included in your packet prior to the meeting was the items that were covered. The report. Thank you, Ms. Sims, for putting this together. But we had our school board meeting minutes and also our work session meeting minutes for March 19th, 2026. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review those. Any comments, questions, clarifications, or corrections?
Mr. Chair, I did notice something in one of the minutes on, if you give me just a second, I'll find it, but I think there was a miss minute on the Central View vote that was taken. I think
Yes, that's correct, Mr. McDonald. Brought that to our director's attention. He worked with Ms. Sims to review the recording, and they have that corrected in the copies that
okay.
you have tonight. If you look on, looks like page 11.
yeah, okay. I just, I noticed it when I was reading through, and I didn't see the updated.
Correct. The MOU with White County Sheriff's Department Central View property has been correctly recorded with the discussion and the roll call vote and the results for that vote, and then the deeding of the bonded crop property was unanimous.
Yeah, still have Young as no here on the minutes. If you look at
You're saying that your vote was,
no, I'm saying your vote is not correct. Because it says 4-3. We have Smith, yes, Douglas, no, McDonald, no, Young, no, Fowler, yes,
oh, I'm sorry.
Officer, yes, and
Good
Stone,
catch.
no.
So can we make that change and we can approve it noting that change perhaps?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I was reading through that just come to my attention.
So,
Go ahead.
and I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald.
No, you're fine.
We've also been talking to Ms. Rust. We're working on some AI assistance and with our technology folks on the note taking, and then we'll be able to go back and proof those a little closer. So we've kind of run a test on that this week, and we'll be trying that again this week. So we should get some of those things cleared up. But thank you all for. And good job. That was a test. So good job, board members, on reading through your notes, and that's a good testimony to the public to show that you're doing your job and reading through those. So we apologize for the error, but we'll make sure we get that cleaned up. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, understanding that it was a test, it makes me feel better that I passed. All right. Any other questions, comments regarding our our minutes from last month? Okay. If not, we're going to go down to the next item, and that's policy. We have 7 policies that are before us tonight. 4 of those are coming up for second reading. I'm going to jump down to those. It's 2802, 2803, 5110, 5304. Those particular minutes, allow me just a second to pull my cheat sheet. Just as a reminder, there was on 2802, there was a meeting of a lump sum non-administrative personnel statement in our policy that was being removed. Then a meeting of a paragraph in 2803, paragraph number 2. Then the 5110, that was where changed where we would pay the estate of any unused accumulated leave for anybody that that passed during their time employed with the district. And then there was a military extended leave policy where we changed the days from 10 days to 15 days for approved R&R for those that were been affected by that. So those are the policies that were coming up for second reading tonight. If you've had any review and have any questions or comments on those policies, haven't had a chance to look at those again, let it be known. Those were included in your packet, and they were highlighted and edited, redlined as were discussed. Okay, if no questions or comments on that, then I want to turn our attention to policies for first reading tonight. So, first reading policies, there are 3, and those policies are 1404, 2400, and 6411. I'm going to skip 1404 for the moment. I'll come back to that. 2400 is regarding revenues and monies collected by any school within our district. And in case you haven't heard, we're getting away from the use of the penny as currency in our in our country, and so we have to have a policy on how we're going to handle cash transactions. And so a cash transaction is going to be rounded to the nearest 5 cent, and so included in that policy, you can see that amounts ending in 1 or 2 is going to be rounded down. Amounts ending in 3 or 4 is going to be rounded up. 6 and 7 are going to be rounded down, and amounts ending in 8 or 9 will be rounded up. So that's the breakdown of how we will be handling cash transactions and the rounding of those to not to deal with the penny. Any questions on that policy?
Does that mean we won't accept pennies for anything anymore?
I think pennies are still legal tender,
Okay.
so I would say the answer to that would be yes. Okay. If nothing on policy 2400, then go down to policy 6411, and we are allowed in a policy to include a special exemption for school-sponsored fundraisers that might fall where the product being sold for the fundraising might fall outside the scope of what our nutrition guidance is. And speaking with Mr. Drombarger and can confirm this, but our nutrition is not they're not doing fundraisers as now, correct?
Yeah, Miss Savage is not here at the moment, but she said there are no fundraisers that are going on outside of the allowable fundraising that takes place. There are a certain number of days that school nutrition or schools are allowed to sell items that are outside of the smart snack category, and but they keep those within those limits. So there are no other fundraisers beyond that would violate this policy.
So the question is, do we need to add language to this policy, or do we just need to leave it as is?
No, that was her advice, was that we could just delete that line and adopt it as is. I don't think that would change our policy at all. I'd have to go back and cross-reference those, but there's no need to add any language according to Ms. Savage.
Okay, so what that would mean is that we would need to go back and double check to make sure that policy language is not changing. So if that's the case, then we would not need to take any action on 6411, correct? Okay, so board members, as we get into our meeting tonight, we'll make note that 6411, Director will go back and look at that, but there is no change to that policy, so we will pull that item from our policy reports because will be no action taken on that. So then it goes, let's go back to 1404. So 1404 is policy that speaks to appeals and appearances before the board, including in the appearing before the board is the state mandated public comment period, where statute says that passed several years ago that all of our each agenda of the board include a agenda item for public comment. And in that policy, the way that policy was written and adopted, that the public comment was strictly towards items on the agenda. So if somebody signed up for public comment, they wanted to be recognized at that point in time in our meeting where that came up, then they would be allowed to speak, but it'd have to be pertaining to agenda item. Late March, mid to late March, legislature passed, or the governor signed legislation that came out of the House and Senate of the state that said that public comments are not only limited to agenda items, but they shall also include matters that are germane to the school board's jurisdiction. So by statute, we're going to have to adopt that language in our policy. Now, one of the things that, as a board, where we do have discretion, is the amount of time that we allow for those comments. So we can set a time for total public comments. We have that option, and then we also have the option to set a time for the individual speaker. So setting a time limit on that, obviously, as you know, it was set there to facilitate efficiency in our meetings and not have them to extend into the wee hours of the morning. Maybe filibuster type comments, but we are allowed to set a time. So we need to consider what we might want to do on that regarding our policy and times. But given the fact that the legislation, the governor has signed this into statute now, and it's in effect now. In my opening comments tonight, I do regarding public comment, I do plan to speak to that, let the public know that of that change, and that we would recognize people that are wanting to speak on matters that are within our board's jurisdiction, and that language, need to keep that in mind. It would be things that would fall in the jurisdiction of the board. So then I'll pause right here for a moment and give you a chance to think on that, ask questions, or have some discussion on what you'd like to, how you'd like to proceed with this policy.
Mr. Chair, I do have a quick question on that, and I remember when we adopted this public comment policy, 4 years ago now, I believe it was?
I think you're correct.
And we set a time of 5 minutes per speaker. And I think our amount of time was 30 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, for public comment.
Let me check that real quick, Mr. McDonald, because you may be correct.
But I'm in favor of keeping the speakers' time to 3 minutes. I believe we have been very diligent in limiting that time to the 3 minutes that we had in our policy before. I think every speaker that comes has been very mindful of that. And as the timekeeper that I've been over the last few years, whenever there's questions asked of the board, I've been gracious enough to pause that time to allow us to respond back to them without using their time. So I think 3 minutes per speaker is good. And if you had 10 speakers, you're gonna hit that 30-minute mark. So, you got some insight for me?
Yes, I do, Mr. McDonald. Current policy says that speakers will be given no more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
And so that would be, we could leave it as is, or we could consider changing that. The language that's not in our current policy is the language that's redline matters that are germane to the school board's jurisdiction, but also is the comment or the language that total public comment period shall be for no more than, and we would insert the amount of time if we chose to limit total public comment. So it would be, if you're looking at the policy that was in your packet, you'd be looking at the language in line 17 and 18, and that's where it deviates from our existing policy. Existing policy language.
I mean, I don't know that we've ever limited anyone to speak for any amount of time on any subject if it was on the policy or if it was on the agenda. Now, we're going to have to go with line 17. We're going to have to adopt that because that's state law now, because the governor has signed that into law. So we're not going to be able to get around that. But I'm not for sure if we want to limit the public amount of time. I don't know. I like the 3 to 5 minute per speaker. And I also like on down in line 20, where if there's a delegation, they shall, only one individual to speak on behalf of the entire delegation. So I'm glad we're going to leave that in there as well. So I would be open to any amount of time that the rest of the board wanted to do there.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any other thoughts, comments on this? Mr. Drombarger.
I'd just like to point out to the board, the last segment says it's optional from TSBA because obviously if people can come speak, they don't have to appear on the before the board via the previous process and get on the agenda. However, the board might want to consider some language in that last section, because if I'm a parent, and I have something that I want to discuss in earnest, and maybe I want to bring forth some documentation for you to study ahead of time and things like that, it's going to be more prudent to go through that process and maybe get on the agenda than what maybe I might be able to explain in 3 minutes. It's up to the board's prerogative, but they may want to consider some language and maybe have TSBA reword that for us at the end, so that there is an avenue for folks that want to have maybe a more in-depth conversation or at least study on an item. But that's certainly the board's prerogative. That's optional now that this other is there, but just wanted to bring that forth for your consideration.
Anyone else have any thoughts or comments? Yes, Ms. Officer.
So I do like the fact that we do put a time limit for the total. I definitely want to be open for people to talk about us. 3 to 5 minutes is fine, but we do, I think, have to have a finite line there. For some subjects, some people could talk and talk and talk because it is a little vague when it says germane to our jurisdiction. And so I do think we need to have 45 minutes, I think, is reasonable as a time limit for the total amount. And then again, just like Mr. Drumbarger said, I really like the fact that if you're on the agenda, and that's the difference, if you're on the agenda, then you can have more time. And I do agree with that 100%. I think we need to have that in policy.
Thank you, Ms. Officer. Ms. Douglas.
Okay, so if you're on the agenda, you have a time limit, but if you are not on the agenda, you...
No, ma'am. If you're, so you bring up something good. I'm going to try to walk through this.
Okay.
And Mr. McDonald can correct me if I'm wrong. There's in the public setting in our meetings that we have, there are basically three ways in which members of the public can be recognized in our meeting. The first one in this policy starts out as appeals to the board. And appeals are the last step in a process of where some type of mediation has not been met at lower levels, as you know, all items are preferred to be taken at the lowest level of authority, but there is options to appeal as you go up through the process, the board being the last. So you have an appearance that would be under appeal, of which would be an agenda item. The next, and I'll just say I think the policy, the way this policy is laid out, it could be improved a little bit when we get into these discussions, because you have then appearing before the board. And appearing before the board is different from following the appeals process. So the appearance of the board, basically you can appear to the board in 2 ways. You can request to be on the agenda, and if the executive committee approves that, then you'd be added onto the agenda. And to Ms. Douglas, to your point, there is no set time limit on being added to speak to the board on the agenda. And there is information that is required to be presented to the board prior to the meeting. And on an agenda item, if you request to be on the agenda item, you would expect that because the board has had the information in front of them prior to the meeting, that the board, prudence would say that that would be a situation where the board could act. However, on a public comment period, if somebody wanted to come up and speak, even if they had information, they would, I don't think they should assume that the board would take action on anything in the public comment period other than a point of reference, giving it to us as a point of reference, because one of the things about this policy is saying if somebody wants to appear, prior to, the statute that's saying allowing the public to comment in a meeting, comments are comments. Appearing to the board for purposes of expecting board action, there has to be more behind that. So, if I, in a long way trying to answer your question, Ms. Douglas, the public comment, the comment period, it's being recommended that there's time limits set. If somebody has to be on an agenda item, has to be on the agenda as a board item, then we don't have time limits set on those. So, does that provide a little clarity? Okay.
Mr. Chair, just one thing on that appearing and adding an agenda item. We have in our policy, we have the blank line there. I guess what the time that we need to add there would be the days, or how many days before the meeting that the material needs to get to the director so that it gets to the board so that we can make an informed decision.
Ms. Douglas, I apologize. I need to correct something here. Mr. McDonald, in our current policy for individuals desiring to appear before the board, there's a process that they go through, and then their request for their materials to be provided to the director 7 days before the meeting. So that way we have the opportunity to review the information prior to the meeting. As I do read down here in the minutes, we do limit those presentations to 5 minutes for them to speak. On when their item comes, when it comes to the that moment on the agenda. What in my mind, Ms. Douglas, when I was saying no time limit, the experience has said they come to a meeting and they spend their 5 minutes. Typically, that's followed by some board discussion, and that is the case. So it would be, you wouldn't limit the amount of time we spent on that agenda item, but we do have in policy now that their presentation is limited to 5 minutes. But that doesn't mean that we would say at the end of 5 minutes, Mr. and Ms. member of the public, you would have to go be seated at that point in time. The board has the discretion on that because that being an agenda item. That's the way I would interpret it.
I'm with you there, Mr. Chair. The 5 to 7 days, is it 7 days that they have to have their material in? Okay, so 7 days. On line 23, they would have to have their material 7 days to the director of schools before the meeting. And then if requested, approved by the executive committee, the item would be placed on the agenda. Individuals placed on the agenda will recognize at the beginning of the meeting and given 5 minutes to speak when their item is addressed on the agenda. That's what our current policy reads now.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest, because this is an important policy, and I'm gonna suggest that we slide this out of consent, put it down into our new business, and then that way we can take in our regular order, we can deliberate on the amounts of times that we want to put in on that. I would probably prefer doing that in a regular meeting as opposed to doing it in this work session. Everybody good with that? Okay, so we'll pull that out of our consent. Then, so that's all of the policies. Anything else regarding policies?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go back to, let me find it, Student Wellness 6411. I've gone back and cross-referenced that to our current policy. So excluding the recommendation to include exemptions for those fundraisers. That wouldn't change your current policy at all. So if the board just didn't take any action on that particular policy, 6411, it wouldn't change anything because we don't have any exceptional fundraisers to add.
Okay, thank you for going and checking on that. So there'll be no action on 6411, no changes to that policy, so we'll omit that from our consent agenda as far as our policy review, okay? All right, thank you for bearing with us on those policy items. Okay, next item on our as part of our consent agenda would be maintenance report. Mr. Alley is present tonight, so Mr. Alley, thank you for joining us. If you want to give us an update.
Good afternoon. Everything is going really well. We completed the restrooms down at the tennis courts. They're totally done. I think about nearly $10,000 cheaper than we were going to spend on them. So unfortunately, that's not our money, it's the county's. So Denny Wayne will be happy. But everything went well with that. I noticed from April 1st to today, we had already completed 60 work orders. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of little things, but a lot going on. Everything seems to be running pretty decently and don't have any problems to turn in. I have not been down to Doyle this week, so Mr. D, have you been down there?
I have. I've approved the brick repair. I think that's about as good as it's going to get there. Tile has coming in, I think next week they're going to start that. They said it'd take about 3 or 4 days to get the tile in, and then the cabinetry and furniture will follow.
Okay. So we're going to be probably right on schedule for the end of school. So any questions for me?
Mr. Alley, have y'all, what's your plans for doing the facilities assessment? I know that you've got to get a contract back, but
They do not want a contract. They said that if we decide to hire them to do to start with the work, then we'll get a contract at that point. But they said we do not need a contract right now. So what we're doing is sending them all of our utility bills, water, electric, gas, everything that we have. They're going to start assessing those, and then they're going to come up and go through the schools one by one and see what they can find that we might be interested in working on. And so, you know, like I said, unless we hire them, we do not have to pay them anything or sign a contract with them.
so if we were to hire them, that would have to go through the procurement process.
They met with Chad. Yeah, we've already gone through all of that.
Okay, so so I guess question that I would have, because we're going to start the budget process up,
Right.
and we'll need to allocate some funds for capital improvements. Do you think they would have any recommendations before we get into that? Because that's a pretty quick time frame.
I'm not sure that they're going to be ready for that come this budget. We're probably shooting for next year's budget with all of this because it's going to take them a while to get through all of this.
That's what was kind of going through my mind.
Right.
Just trying to figure out, but we probably shouldn't let a year go by that we don't do capital projects if something's on the agenda. So would you be able to look at that and have something in place for us? So that way we're not just letting a year go by and no maintenance.
Well, you could always give me all the money and, you know.
Okay, well that would be a board decision.
No, we will have something in there. We've already discussed a lot of things at the schools, and there's quite a bit that we can do while waiting basically on this. But yes, it will be included in the budget for this year.
But our hope out of this assessment is we can put a capital plan together that would be longer term. You can find fixes for the short term. Okay, great.
Right.
All right. Board members, any other question for Mr. Alley?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alley. All right, next item on our agenda is budget report. Ms. Officer.
Speaking of money, thank you, Mr. Markham and your team for putting this report together for me. The following report is presented detailing the financial position of White County School System for the period ending March 31st, 2026. Through the end of March, total revenues for all school funds were $35,585,544, while total expenditures and encumbrances totaled $33,603,789, resulting in a combined estimated fund balance. Am I echoing?
You're doing fantastic. It's a technology thing. I'm gonna turn this down a little bit.
Because it sounded really bad to
Yeah,
me, too.
It's recirculated. so
Okay,
it's
thank
right in
you.
front of the speaker, so that should be.
Okay. This reflects a steady increase from the beginning of the fund balance of $20,455,164, driven largely by the peak property and local option sales tax collection season. Within the general purpose school fund, revenues had an increase of 0.12% for the same period over last year. Expenditures and encumbrances had an increase of 7.53% for March of '25. This expenditure increase continued to be driven largely by salaries and wages for regular instruction, which rose by over $1 million for the prior year due to the one-time bonus paid at the beginning of the school year. Local option sales tax collections for year-to-date totaled $2,191,187, reflecting continued growth over the prior year receipts of $2,043,282. The School Federal Projects Fund shows revenue of 14.59% lower than the prior year, while expenditures are 0.42% lower, largely due to shifts in the federal programming, funding, and timing. Expenditures are currently outpacing revenue, which is typical of this particular fund because it operates on a reimbursement basis where funds are requested after obligations are met, leaving an estimated ending balance of $2,537,091. The Central Cafeteria Fund revenues show an increase of 9.65% over prior year, while expenditures have also increased, but only 0.38%, driven by rising cost in food and supplies. The fund's estimated ending balance currently stands at $587,667. Overall, our school system maintains a stable financial standing through the third quarter, with property tax collections now at 99.38% for the annual budget. The system's fiscal health remains consistent with the seasonal expectations and historical performances.
Thank you, Ms. Officer. Any questions, comments regarding our fiscal report for March 2026? Okay, if not, then we'll go down the next item, budget amendments and transfers. Just double check, there are no budget amendments or transfers for us to consider for this month. So we'll move on to the next item, and that's personnel report. We have personnel report for the applicants, interviews, and hires for the month of March. And also included in your packet is personnel changes for the month of March, which includes new hires, terminations, and transfers. Any questions on those personnel reports? Okay, if not, then we'll move on to the next one. Is our threat assessment report. We provided with a threat assessment report for the month of March. You can see that there are 2 items that are open and being monitored, but all other items for the month of March have closed, and so that's hopefully we can get those other 2 closed as well and find them properly handled. Any questions, comments regarding the threat assessment report? Okay, if not, we'll go to our tail end report. Mr. Smith, I'm sure it's been a busy month on state capitol.
It has, Mr. Chairman, and just want a point of clarity. I'm not on Facebook or playing Minecraft. My computer has died, so I'm using my phone as my way of communicating.
Ms. Douglas, please verify that.
Ms. Douglas, is that not on? State Bill 2310, excuse me, Senate Bill 2310, House Bill 2393. This is the one about using digital devices for grades K through 5. And my understanding is originally it was to restrict use of devices K through 5 for instruction, but the latest amendment, as I read it, is expecting the LEA to produce a policy governing the age-appropriate and instructional use of digital devices by students to minimize unnecessary screen time. I think the idea is to prioritize in-person teacher-led instruction over the use of digital devices in instruction. The other one is, and forgive me, but let me find it. Don't let your computer run out of juice. The other one is Senate Bill 2247 and House Bill 2532, and that has to do with the increase in vouchers. And Mr. D, I may defer to you because in your report to us, you had mentioned that they had tagged on something regarding immigration onto that. Is that correct?
So, yeah, the last update that I had, that there was the competing bills in the House and the Senate, and there was discrepancy over, because there was an amendment to force the schools to check immigration status of students that are enrolling in your schools. And so they had gone back to deliberation to try and find a settlement on that. So I think that's the last update I had. That's where that stood. But the number that they're trying, I think, is 40,000 that they're trying to move to, which is more than what originally was proposed. But they're trying to move that to 40,000 voucher opportunities.
Yeah. And if you look at White County schools, I don't know of but one private school in White County, so I'm not certain within the county the total impact there, but those that have the ability to go to Putnam County or Warren County, that they could impact our enrollment. So I guess a little disappointed that it went from 20,000 with an additional 5 to now 25 and now to 40 scholarships that are being offered. So those are the two items I wanted to share, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. Any other board member have a? Mr. Smith, what did I say?
I promise I'm not playing a game. I promise.
Mr. Smith, I
was cold.
apologize. We'll move on.
So that really does mean you're going to miss me when I'm gone, right?
Mr. McDonald, from when you're gone, I will refer to every board member, I'm sure, as Mr. McDonald.
I do have a comment on his two legislative updates. Seems like every bill that comes through regarding education, our legislators, our fine legislators and I do that with a lot of sarcasm in my voice. They seem to want to add other things that they want to push through on their agenda and tie it to education, when we need to be worried about educating our students to the best of their ability of the group of teachers and administrators, not only in White County, but in all the counties in the state of Tennessee, and not worrying about adding all of their wants and needs onto education. Let's find somewhere else to put those, and let's fund education the way it needs to be funded, and let's pay our teachers and our staff and our support staff and the people that get them to and from school, let's pay them what they're worth, and not worry about what political gain they're going to get. So now I'm going to get off my political soapbox and cut it off right there. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, I'm sorry. Been a long day. Any other questions, comments regarding their legislators, student
You
representatives?
keep that up, it's going to get real short.
All right. Then moving on, we've got two agreements that we need, been asked to consider tonight. One of them is a copier lease for Dole that was provided in your packet. I'll let Mr. Drumbarger speak to the details on that. But then also is the athletic trainer agreement with Star Physical Therapy for providing our athletic trainer for our school sporting events. So, Mr. Drumbarger, you speak to those quickly and just we know what we're doing there.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The Doyle, the copier leases at the schools are handled through their internal funds, but the board has to approve any leases that we go into with any company. So they'd like to enter into this lease, a new lease with Canon, and the school is responsible for those. They've run the numbers. It's very comparable to what they have, but they'll get new copiers and good service. And so they just need your blessing in order to handle that, and I recommend that to the board. The agreement with Star is for our trainer, Brent Ryan. It'll be an increase of $1,000 for the school board for our portion, and we split that, the cost of the trainer with Star and physical therapy. So we are blessed to have Brent Ryan working in that regard for us. He does a great job, and he's one of the best in the state. And so we're fortunate to have him, and we get it at a 50% discount because of our partnership with Star. So I'd recommend approval of that contract as well.
Thank you, Mr. Stromberger. Board members, do we have any questions regarding the dual copier lease agreement?
Just a general question. Has any research been done to see if there's savings of any kind to centralize the copier contract, that all schools will fall under the same one?
I'm not sure Chad, if we've ever looked at that, and the individual schools do that, and there's various needs at different schools. So, the high school's needs are very different. Yeah, okay, because off the state contract, yeah, but we've never done it collectively as one, but they bid off of that one. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Any other questions on the dual copier lease? All right. What about regarding the athletic trainer agreement lease with with Star Physical Therapy, the 50-50 split on funding our athletic trainer?
I'd just like to echo what Mr. D said. Brent Ryan's probably one of the best in the business and been doing it a long time, so we're lucky to have him. And if you see him out, he's going to be at every sporting event he can be at. So I think this is a great asset for us to continue to pursue.
It's been in place. That agreement's been in place for what?
Yeah, it's several years. So going back, they were with wherever the hospital was before. I was with the hospital, and then when the local hospital went through some changes, they dropped that scenario. I personally went to Star Physical Therapy because I knew that they had an agreement with another district and said, would you take us on? And they did, and so we've had a great partnership with them for several years.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stromberger. All right, so board members, that concludes the consent agenda items for tonight's meeting. Just as a review, we have everything squared away on our board meeting minutes from last month on our work session and a regular meeting. Policy 1404 is going to be moved to first item in new business. We're going to remove policy 6411 from the consent because no action was needed on that, and had our consent would be approving the reports that were presented and shared with us tonight. Anything else with the short time we have left for our work session? Okay, if not, we'll adjourn till 6 o'clock for our regular meeting. Thank you. Okay, it's your 2-minute warning. We'll start in 2 minutes. All right, this time I'd like to call the April 9th meeting of the White County Board of Education to order. Please rise and join me as we pledge our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here to our meeting tonight here on this lovely April evening as we consider the work of the Board of Education in regards to our district here in White County. So thank you for being here. We have members of the public. We have our staff, board staff, teachers. We have a full agenda tonight, and so appreciate you being here and your interest in our educational system. So before we consider tonight's agenda, please note the following. Tennessee statute and board policy 1400 state that every meeting of the board shall be open to the public except where law allows a closed session. The agenda for board meetings are posted on the district's website at www.whitecoastschools.net, and agendas are posted at least 3 days prior to each meeting. The Public Acts of 2023, Chapter number 300, and Board Policy 1404 state that each board meeting shall include an agenda item reserved for public comment, as well as conditions under which those wishing to comment will be recognized. A sign-up sheet is made available prior to the beginning of each regular meeting for those wishing to speak. Individuals who have signed up prior to start of our regular meeting and those wishing to speak during this portion of the agenda will be recognized in the order listed on the sign-up sheet at the designated time for public comment. Legislation recently signed into law opens public comment to include agenda items as well as any topic over which White County School Board has jurisdiction. That will be effective in tonight's meeting. The board meetings are streamed with the help of our central technology staff for live or recorded viewing. The links are provided on the district's website. And attending or speaking during tonight's meeting implies consent for comments and appearances to be used. So before we consider tonight's agenda, does anyone have a conflict of interest on the agenda that's being considered tonight?
Mr. Chair, as I do each and every meeting, I do not have a conflict of interest with anything on the agenda tonight. Just want to make it for public record that my wife is an educator in our system, and the views that you hear from me tonight and the comments that I make tonight and the votes that come from me tonight are mine and mine alone, and are for the betterment of White County schools as a whole.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a conflict with anything on the agenda, but my spouse is employed by the district.
Thank you, Ms. Officer.
Mr. Chairman, same here. My wife is the bookkeeper at the high school. No conflicts for me on the agenda tonight, but wanted to make that known.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So, Ms. Sims, please let the minute records show that Mr. McDonald, Ms. Officer, and Mr. Smith all expressed that they have a spouse working for the district, but nothing on tonight's agenda that's being considered would constitute a conflict for them. So the next item on our agenda would be approval for the agenda meeting for tonight. Board members, you've had the agenda was presented to you earlier this week for consideration. The only changes that have been made to the agenda from what was originally published that in our consent agenda, policy 6411, that was discovered in work session that there's no change to that policy, so there won't be any action taken on that. So the consent agenda will have that item removed. And we are also moving policy 1404 regarding public comment. We're moving that to new business as that may need to have a little bit more deliberation. So as you look at the consent agenda items coming out of our work session, policy 1404, policy 1611 have been removed from the consent. So at this time, we'll consider our consent agenda items, and all items that were in our consent agenda that was discussed.
Hold on. You gotta have a motion for the agenda first.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Thank you. Getting ahead of myself. Mr. McDonald, would you like to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
Thank you. I have a motion to approve
With those changes.
to approve the agenda with those changes that were noted. So have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Douglas. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll get into our consent agenda, and the consent agenda items were discussed in our work session at 5 o'clock. Those included approval of the board meeting and work session meeting minutes from our March 19th meeting. Policy reports, we have policies 2400 will be coming forward for a first reading tonight. We also have policies 2802, 2803, 5110, 534 for second reading. If adopted, those will be go into effect after tonight's meeting. We're also given a maintenance report by Mr. Alley, a budget report by Ms. Officer with the assistance of our fiscal administrator, Mr. Chad Markham. There were no budget amendments or transfers that be considered tonight. We reviewed our personnel report, our threat assessment report. Mr. John Smith gave us an update on their Tennessee legislative news. And then we also will be considering a dual copier lease agreement, as well as agreement with Star Physical Therapy for providing services for our athletic trainer, Mr. Brent Ryan. So those were items that covered in our consent agenda, and the copies were provided to board members in advance. Does any board member wish to remove any item other than 1404 from our consent agenda? Okay, if there's no objection, then the consent agenda will be adopted by unanimous vote as presented. Hearing no objection, the consent agenda is adopted. So next we'll move into student spotlights. So we are, tonight we have some special guests with us, and want to recognize anytime that we have students in our district that go above and beyond. We love the opportunity to address that, and tonight we do. First, we will like to recognize Bianca Villano, a White County Middle School softball player. Miss Villano is being recognized for demonstrating an act of kindness that was not just recognized by her peers. This was recognized with somebody outside our district, and so I would like to share a letter that was sent to the TSSAA, who awards excellence in athletics. But it says, I want to share a story that reflects the best of what youth athletics, and more importantly, young people can represent. I would also like to nominate the student athlete for the NFHS Award of Excellence. Recently, a softball player from White County Middle School, Bianca Villano, made the selfless decision to donate her birthday and Christmas money totaling $100 to support a Prescott South softball family whose father is courageously battling an aggressive form of cancer. This act of generosity is especially meaningful because she knows the family personally and felt called to step in and help during that great time of need. In the world of softball, rivalries certainly exist, but they are often overshadowed by something far greater. Many of these athletes compete together on regional travel teams, forming friendships and bonds that extend well beyond colors of school or game day competition. This young lady's actions are a powerful reminder that the rivalry is, in truth, secondary to the shared respect, compassion, and connection within the softball community. Her willingness to give so sacrificially at such a young age speaks volume about her character. It also reflects the values being instilled through her family, coaches, and communities, values of kindness, humility, and service to others. In a time when it is easy to focus on competition and outcome, this act reminds us that the true measure of success is found in how we care for one another. This young athlete has set an example for her peers and for all of us, demonstrating that even the smallest acts of generosity can have a profound impact. And that letter was sent by Nathan Twitty, Assistant Principal and Athletic Director of Prescott South Middle School in Putnam County. So, Ms. Villano, we are just impressed by your selflessness and your willingness to show love and compassion to those that you can reach. And so we just want to congratulate you and thank you for representing what's best of White County and the White County student body. I'd like to also congratulate their parents too. You've done a wonderful job in setting an example for your daughter. So thank you. Next, I'd like to recognize Dalton Hickey. If Dalton would come forward, please. So Dalton was part of a contest that where students were given the opportunity to create some artwork and submit it to for a book. And so thousands of students across the U.S. Did their artwork and submitted into the organization. Mr. John Berger, if I could have that, so I can. Thank you. Was to send into an organization that was putting a book together. And so I'll read this, and this what we're giving Dalton tonight. But it was an after school program, and they were participating in the Young Artist Monster Madness contest, which challenged children aged 4 to 12 to use their imagination to invent, draw, and name their own unique monster. And so Ms. Teresa Holman was recently notified that the Huskies artwork was selected to be published in the contest's official full-color book. And the excitement was even exemplified more by, out of the 1,000 entries, Dalton's was selected, his artwork was selected to be the coveted Favorite Artist Award, and his artwork was chosen to be on the front cover of the published book. So in recognition of that outstanding artistry and imagination, Dalton received a special goodie bag packed with creative supplies from the contest organizers. So what we want to do tonight is recognize Dalton and congratulate him amongst all the talented students in our district for the fact that he has published cover artwork. And we would just want to thank him for, again, representing our county and our district well with his special talents. So, Dalton, thank you.
I was gonna say, let the moms go over, mom and dad or whoever get pictures over there if they want.
Yeah, at this time, this is a special time during our board meetings, we get to recognize people. We would like parents, if you would, let's allow them to take a recess, and if you all wouldn't mind, come up and we could get a picture with all of you and your child in front of our board with our director. Oh, okay, you want to do all that at one time? Okay, so we'll recess and we'll take care of all this at one time. That's more efficient. Thank you for that. All right, so we'll move on to the next item. As we're talking about artists and artistry tonight, we'd like to spotlight our school, Woodland Park Elementary, and recognize Miss Julie Johnson tonight. She is going to be presenting some Artist of the Year award, and I think she has some staff joining her tonight, and along with Miss Officer. So, Miss Johnson, we like to recognize you at this time.
We are pleased to recognize tonight several of our Woodland Park students. Miss Brooks also helped me pick these students out as well. The first one is Miss Ellie Newman. Ellie has a wonderful talent for drawing. Her sketches are always so full of detail. So if Ellie would come forward. Caden Brown. You can always find Caden with a pencil and some paper ready to draw. We love his dedication to getting even better than he already is. Great job, Caden. Ryder Birch. Ryder is such an attentive musician. He always wants to make sure he understands the concepts, and he often brings insightful questions to our conversations about music. Great job, Ryder. Joel Lopez. Joel is so thorough with his art. Anytime he is asked to draw or color, he gives his best effort and makes some wonderful masterpieces. And the last student is Miss Kaylin Lindsay. She is a bright little musician. She blows me away with her use of her singing voice and her ability to catch on to any song quickly. And last but not least, if you ever get the chance to come and sit in on Miss Brooks' music class, you will not be disappointed. She is very creative and brings much passion to our program at Woodland Park. Our students are met with excitement and encouragement, and I can't tell you how many times I've left the classroom with a smile on my face because everything she does is positive and the students are always engaged. So, Ms. Brooks, we are so lucky to have you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson, and congratulations to all of those that have been recognized. So at this time, we're going to take recess, and we're going to allow for some photo shoots of our Woodland Park recipients, award recipients, and also we want to ask Ms. Milano and Mr. Hickey and their families to come up, and we could get pictures with them too. So we'll recess and rejoin our meeting here shortly. So as I always say, members, you're welcome to stay for the entirety of our meeting, but if you need to be excused, you can do so at this time. All right, this time we'll call our meeting back to order. Takes us down to the next item on our agenda, and that is our student representative report. Ms. Callie Odell and Ms. Isabel Sackett have a report. So, ladies, if you would.
Okay. We would like to begin by highlighting some exciting things happening across White County schools. First, our JROTC program at the high school will be competing in the Mountain Man Memorial March in Gatlinburg, where cadets participate in a 13.5-mile hike. This event challenges students both physically and mentally and reflects the discipline, resilience, and leadership being developed within the program. We are proud of their dedication and how they continue to represent our school.
Our tennis program is also having an outstanding season. The boys team is currently 10-0 and the girls team is 8-1. The program continues to grow with many JV athletes stepping up at the varsity level and contributing to its success. And speaking with Coach Hawkins, she says that tennis is a lifelong sport and these student athletes are working to build a strong foundation that will allow the program to be successful for years to come. They've made several improvements, including the addition of bathrooms and electrical upgrades to the pavilion, and through fundraising, they were able to purchase new windscreens, which enhance the overall appearance of campus, and the team is excited about the future and committed to making White County proud.
As we get closer to the end of the school year, we are selling senior supper tickets at the high school. Each senior is allowed to bring 2 parents, but additional tickets for other family members can be purchased as well. Those are for sale right now, and the tickets are $15 from Miss Broyles in the library.
Academically, students across the district are soon to be entering testing season. Elementary schools are preparing for TCAP testing, while middle school and high school students are completing their end-of-course exams and other assignments. This is an important time that reflects the hard work of both students and teachers throughout the year.
Overall, our Wednesday club days have been a really great success. Our student organizations and clubs like Beta, FFA, and FCCLA continue to stay active and successful. Students are consistently finding ways to get involved, serve their community, and grow as leaders.
Lastly, prom tickets are on sale now. It's $25 for a single ticket and $40 for couples. We hope to see students there April 25th from 7 to 10 p.m. And we also want to mention that if you are in need of a dress or a suit, please never hesitate to ask us and we can get you hooked up. The clothing closet at the high school has lots to offer. There are many positive things happening across White County schools, and it's exciting to see both academic and extracurricular success continuing to grow.
Thank you, ladies. Well done. Board members, have any questions or comments for Ms. Sackett or Ms. Odell? So, the clothes closet. Could y'all speak to that for just a second?
So actually, I was blessed with the opportunity to kind of develop the clothing closet into what it is now, and it's really turned into a great place for students to get some community service hours and helping organize that closet. But truly, if you need anything ever at all, you can go to any administrator in the high school, any teacher, and they can direct you to the clothing closet. There's tons to offer and no limit on what you need to get. You can get it. There's hygiene products, and they can get you in contact with our Family Resource Center to get you food bags, food pantry. So we can get you the help you need, and it's super easy to find downstairs, first door on the right.
So how is that stocked? Donations?
That's stocked mainly by donations. The Family Resource Center does a good job of making sure that we're filtering things from the Board of Education here to the high school, but we do receive a lot of donations from community members, and we're always asking for more donations. So it's mainly a lot of my closet is in there, to be honest. a lot of my closet is in there too.
That's great.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one quick question for Ms. Sackett. 2 things FFA related. Can you speak to the tractor and truck show that's happening this weekend at the fairgrounds, and then also the FFA banquet that's coming up?
I can do my best to speak to the truck and tractor show. Off the top of my head, I'm not quite sure what time that's at, but I know that it's going to be a lot of fun, and our alumni are really doing a great job of helping us fundraise and putting on events like that for us. It's been a great asset having them partner with us these past few years. And then our annual awards banquet is April 21st at 6 p.m. Doors open at 5:30. There'll be yummy food, Templeton's barbecue, and they're smoking the chicken that our students raised at the barn. So it's going to be really yummy, and we invite you guys to come out. I do actually have tickets for all the board members, so you'll get those after the meeting, but we invite you guys to come out and celebrate with us. It'll be a lot of fun.
Thank you, ladies. Any other questions, comments for our student representatives? It sounds like it'd be a fun time to be a high schooler right now. Yeah, I have a lot going on. All right. If nothing else, then we'll go down to our district update. Mr. Drumbarger.
If we must. Personnel reports are in your packet. Spent the last 2 weeks interviewing and offering employment to several new talented educators. We're excited about these new hires and the quality of education they'll bring to our district. More changes forthcoming. Then we'll look forward to the opportunity to strengthen our already award-winning staff. Academically, TCAP testing is here. It begins next week. Our students and staff have been working all year for this event. White County Schools has a recent history of great success on state assessments, and we expect nothing but the same this year. Best wishes to all of our students, staff, and families in the coming days of testing. Legislatively, the General Assembly is wrapping up its business for the session. We're still eagerly awaiting the decision on a bill which would redefine and better fund economically disadvantaged students across the state. This definition was changed in recent years by the state government, which adversely affected funding for all districts, but specifically those like White County that have a large population of economically disadvantaged students. We're hopeful this bill would be funded based on the federal definition, which has not changed, and TSBA and TOS will provide summaries of the legislative session in the near future. Financially, I recently held meetings with all of our department heads and school administrators to discuss the budget needs for next year. The main focus of these conversations are personnel, maintenance equipment, and furniture. We expect next year to have a limited capital outlay projects, but we'll plan for larger projects in subsequent years. Athletically, spring sports teams are in mid to later stages of the district schedules. District tournaments will begin at the beginning of May. Several of our teams are top contenders, and all of our squads are representing our school system very well. Boys soccer is 7-2, by the way, just saying. Building projects, we have received several bids for replacement of the wall panels at WCHS Career Academy. We'll be selecting a contractor soon and begin this project and bring it to an end. The floor tiles at Doyle, as I said, are arriving, should be installed next week, and this will allow for the crews to install cabinetry around the walls and install the furniture. Today, Leadership Sparta, we met with representatives from a program called Leadership Sparta. This program was hosted by the White County Chamber of Commerce. It consists of groups of young community leaders who desire to learn more about their community and grow in their leadership knowledge and capabilities. The central office staff here did a great job presenting about their departments and overall school district success. The group was led on a tour of several district facilities and programs, and they were very complimentary and impressed. Special thanks to Ms. Farrah Griffith for spearheading that event, and thanks to all of our central office staff for their efforts in making that a success. Quick calendar update, hard to believe, but there are only 6 weeks of school remaining in this school year. The next 2.5 weeks will be crucial as we embark on state assessments, and afterwards we will review prior learning, we'll preview next year's standards, and we'll participate in field trips and other fun activities down the stretch. Great things continue to happen in White County Schools, and that concludes my director's report. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Stromberg. Any questions, comments from board members regarding our district update?
I'm going to assume that with Dole, the project at Dole is not going to be affected by TCAP. TCAP is not, they're not going to be affected as far as the installation there and the noise that might be going on, and there won't be any movement on that into those new classrooms before summer break.
On the first part of your question, no, we've communicated explicitly with the construction company of when testing is, when they could and could not be making noise. And so, not to say that there won't be some activity, but we've been very clear, and they understand that they're past the deadline, so they understand at this point that they may have to press pause in order for us to get testing in. And then, what was your second part of your question?
Just, there won't be any movement as far as classrooms from the end of school into summer break.
No, thank you. No, I don't imagine. If they finish in the next several weeks, which we imagine they will, there will certainly be some excitement, and they'll move some items. Teachers will be excited to move some items, but not in earnest. We won't be, I don't think, moving entire classes. What is exciting about that that project is in the future, this time next year, Doyle will be able to pretty much close those doors and have testing on that whole wing while the rest of the school can continue on. So they'll have 2nd through 5th grade on that wing, and they can do all their testing. And like I said, the kindergarten, pre-K could go on about their 1st grade, could go about their day in the rest of the building. So that'll be a neat feature of that design.
Any other questions for our director regarding our district update report? Okay, if not, we'll move down to the next item on our agenda, and that's public comment. Policy 1404 says that states that we have an agenda item open for public comment, sign-up sheet prior to each meeting. Mr. Thorpe confirms to me that there's no one has signed up to be recognized tonight for public comment. So that takes us down to the new business, and new business, we did move an item out of consent agenda, and it is policy 1404. Legislature passed and our governor signed into law new legislation regarding the public comments and appearances before the board, which affect our policy 1404. The addition is that original statute said that public comments would be limited to, or shall be limited to, items listed on the agenda. But since legislation has expanded that to say that topics that are listed on the agenda and matters that are germane to the school board's jurisdiction. So going forward, we will abide by that statute, and so that would not limit anyone to speak, if regardless if it was whether it was an agenda item or not. But if it was a matter that fell under the school board's jurisdiction, then we would recognize them during public comment. We had some discussion in our work session regarding appeals and appearances to the board, which policy 1404 covers. And there are basically in 3 ways in which the public can appear before the board and be recognized on the agenda. 3 different ways. One is an appeal that is part of a process where regarding any matter relating to the operation of school or some type of disciplinary procedure that has not been satisfied at the lowest level of authority. Those appeals can rise through policy to the board, and so there's those items would come on our agenda and would be handled as an appeal. Then there is appearing before the board, and the appearances of the board can happen in 2 ways. One is through the public comment period, which we just mentioned. The other is requesting to be on the agenda and speaking before the board on the agenda, and asked to be recognized as part of the agenda. And so the agenda, adding to the agenda process, we do have a policy where those that wish to appear before the board would have to provide written requests and materials to the office of our director of schools 7 days before the meeting, to give time for that information to be distributed out to the board members. And so But that information is reviewed by the executive committee, and if agreed upon, then that would be placed on the agenda, and then they would be recognized as listed on the agenda, and the beginning of the meeting, and we would give them their turn to speak, 5 minutes to address their item. And so that would be a situation where somebody from the public could be recognized to the board. Then there's the public comment, and that's the third way that which the public can be recognized in a meeting such as this. And again, we've been consistent when it was adopted, statute was adopted, that comments would be added to our agenda, that we have to have an agenda item to allow for public comment, but those were limited to items listed on the agenda. But now it's expanded to items that are germane to the board's jurisdiction. So board members, we pulled this out because there's a couple of things that we need to have some deliberation on and take action. And that is whether or not we want to limit the total time for public comment, which we have the prerogative to do, and also if we want to limit the amount of time that an individual would be allowed to speak during the public comment period. Currently, we have each speaker is given no more than 5 minutes. This is in our policy now during the public comment period. So each speaker is given no more than 5 minutes, and we also have in our policy that if there's a delegation, we would recognize one member to be to speak on behalf of that designation, unless as a board we determine otherwise. So currently in place, we do have a time limit on the amount of time we would give someone for public comment at 5 minutes, but we do not have anything regarding the total public comment period time. And so in the model policy that was provided for us for consideration from TSBA, it does have that language in there, so we need to consider whether or not we want to adopt a time limit for total public comment, and if we want to adjust any of the time given for allowed for public comments. So board members, this is your time to comment on if we want to make any changes to this policy.
Mr. Chair, I think I'll start here. With the changes that's come from the governor's office and our legislation, I don't know about, I would think 30 minutes maximum time of public comment would be a good place for us to start, but I don't want to limit that to just 30 minutes. I would like to see it, if we do adopt something like that, be at the chairman's discretion to let that go longer. That's going to give you 3 to 5 minutes per speaker. If we did 5 minutes per speaker, we would probably need to bump that to 50 minutes. And because you have 10 minutes, if you have 10 speakers that come at 5 minutes, that's going to be 50 minutes. So we're going to go over that 30 minutes. So I would be open to anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 to 50 minutes of amount of time at the chairman's discretion. We've not had many times that our public comment has went over 30 minutes in my tenure on this board. So I don't necessarily know that we have to put a time on it, but I would be in favor of 30 to 45 to 50 minutes with 5 minutes per speaker.
All right, Mr. McDonald has expressed his thought on an option. Other board members have like to comment.
I don't always like to do this, but I agree with Mr. McDonald. But let's just make it good round numbers. So 50 minutes, 5 minutes per speaker. That gives 10 speakers, and that seems reasonable to me.
Other comments? Ms. Officer?
It's reasonable.
Student representatives.
It's reasonable.
Ms. Douglas.
I think that's reasonable as well.
You need that in form of a motion?
Well, no, I wanted to share my thoughts.
Okay. Get ready, folks. I wish we started 30 minutes ago.
I think we will discover what time's reasonable the more we get into this. My thoughts on this would be set the public comment time period for 30 minutes and speakers the opportunity to speak for 3. Because my thought on this is that the public comment period, we should, as a board, we should not take action on items that just come up in a public comment period, because at that point in time, we would be making decisions without having the opportunity to properly review information. And the board could make a motion to extend public comment time longer. In the course that came up, that could be approved, but I would think that, to me, 30 minutes and 3 minutes seems reasonable, because now in a 30-minute time frame, if it's 3, you could get 8 to 10 people who wanted to comment with option for extension. That's my thought, but I can be voted down on that because everybody else seems to think that's reasonable.
So I had a question about that.
Okay.
So 3 minutes for the public comment and then 5 minutes for the agenda piece? Because I do think that needs to be larger amount of time.
Yeah, currently we do have 5 minutes for an agenda item. Correct. So if you're on the agenda to speak, you get an extra time. Is that me?
So if I'm understanding this correct, in lines 23, 4, and 5, we're making no change in that portion of our policy. It's going to stay at 7 days before the material's got to be submitted, 7 days to the director of schools, goes through the executive committee. Then that item, if approved by the executive committee, will be placed on the agenda, and the speaker will be given 5 minutes to speak there. There's no change in that portion.
That is correct. That was the second way I mentioned as far as appearing to the board and being on the agenda, and so this would not change. We're really only looking at that period of public comment that we've had to add to our agenda. So it is agenda item, but it's the public comment agenda item. So to your point, Ms. Officer, if somebody wanted to appear before the board and it was approved that they would do that to be added to the agenda, you give that, and that 5 minutes is for their presentation. And then, the board can have discussion after that, but the public comment period is more as a courtesy to the public to come and speak to the board, but the action that would be expected would not take place in a public comment. It would be board action would come out of item on the agenda.
So much like my colleague to my right, I'm going to have to maybe agree with you, and I don't like doing that, but I'm going to have to agree with you. I'm going to put this in form of a motion that we set the time of public comment in line item number 18 of 1404 to 30 minutes with a 3-minute time per speaker, with the provision of the chairman's discretion to extend the amount of time of public comment as we see fit, or the number of people that show up.
Okay, so Mr. McDonald has made a motion that that we set the total public comment period for 30 minutes, giving each speaker the opportunity to speak for 3, and the chairman's discretion on that time, that total time to be extended. That was the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Smith. Discussion on that motion.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you're wording it that it's up to your discretion to let the time go longer, would that mean that a board member couldn't make a motion to extend the time, or am I incorrect?
No, that is a great question. That is a great question. And so in this policy, the board could give that to give the chairman the opportunity to extend that. But the board can also vote to overrule the chairman if he said no and they wanted to extend it. The board does that, so that is in policy that they
Okay.
can do that. It's not in this policy, but it is in another operational policy where the board can do that.
Okay.
So that's a great question. You've been paying attention to these meetings.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right. Mr. Stromberger, do you have any questions, comments? Okay. All right. Motion is second. If no other further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Next item on our business is an old business item. Last month we had as an agenda item to consider snow day pay for staff, something that we've wrestled with for some time now. And so we tabled that to tonight's meeting. And so in your packet, you were provided with our director, and so Ms. Rigsby has been doing some work on this too. I'd like to recognize those efforts. They have come up with a proposal for how we deal with snow days for those that are affected by weather, inclement weather, and that would impact them for their ability to show up to work. So you were provided with a policy recommendation for how we handle to try to mitigate the financial impact on our non-salaried employees that lose those wages during school closure and don't have the opportunity to work as maybe some of the other staff does. So that was provided in the packet. So before we get into some discussion and then take any action on that, Mr. Stromberger, I'd just like to give you the opportunity to speak to this, what's being shared with us.
So if we've explained many times, there are some employees that don't have the opportunity to work on snow days because there's not work for them to do. But however, and they miss out on paychecks during that time. However, we have people who do have work to do on snow days, and so it's always been a dilemma that we can't pay those people who aren't working when we're paying people that are on those days. So the long story short, what we've come up with is we have some employees that have some specific benefits to their position. Maybe they're hard to staff positions, so they have special incentives or benefits involved with their position. So what we've done is created an inclement weather wage assistance benefit. And so what we want to do is liken it to unemployment. And if let's take teachers' aides, for example. If they're out 10 days throughout the year for snow, if it was 10 consecutive days, they would be able to apply for unemployment. There would be a 5-day waiting period in which they would not get unemployment, but picking up on day 6, if it was consecutive, then they'd be eligible for unemployment compensation. So what we're proposing is just that. Even though it's not consecutive, we would like to institute a procedure in which a benefit for those folks in which on day 6, day 5, 1 through 5, we're going to exclude the fact that it's not consecutive. But on day 6, 1 through 5 would be their waiting period. On day 6, we would pick up and we'll pay the rate for what they would receive would have received for unemployment had they been eligible for it. The bottom line I want to say here is that these folks are going to get more money than they would out of the old process, because the old process was, we fixed an accounting issue that we had as well. They were banking time, almost comping time, and then banking on the fact that the board was going to give them 5 days of makeup time later. And so they were staying 15 minutes and working 15 minutes extra and doing these things, banking up this time, and then the board would pay them for the 5 days of snow like they have in the past. That covered that 15 minutes that they were working extra every day already. We have now front-loaded them, fixed an accounting issue. We're no longer banking any time. There's no comp time or anything like that. We're paying them up front for that 5 days. For that 15 minutes extra days. So that covers that 5 days technically that they were getting granted before. So they're at a net loss at that point. But now, even with that 5 day window that if we talk about that 5 day waiting period, they've already got money for that time that they served before. That 15 minutes has already been paid. So that technically has kind of covered that 5 day waiting period. Now what we're saying is that day 6, what the board hasn't traditionally done is days 6 through 10, they're going to get an extra compensation based on the rate that they would receive for unemployment. So in a sense, they're really getting more. I know it seems counterproductive that they're not getting paid for that 5 days, but we're paying them up front, and that's the correct accounting procedure, bookkeeping procedure. They're getting paid for that now, but now on day 6, and beyond, up to 13, they're going to get an extra benefit for their position. So they're actually going to get more pay than they had under the old system. We're just doing it the more correct in a better bookkeeping practice, and we're using a really good, I think, procedure based on some sound financial strategy. We're not just pulling this out of the air. We're actually using, because technically, had these been consecutive days, they would have legally been able to apply for unemployment. So we don't want to doubly punish them, one, because it snowed and they couldn't work, and then two, just because it wasn't consecutive, they couldn't apply for unemployment. So in the end, this is going to mean more money for them than it did under the old system. We're just doing it in a more correct bookkeeping procedure. And Mr. Markham and Ms. Rigsby, you can correct me on any of that if I've misspoken.
Thank you, Mr. Stromberger. Board members, what questions, comments would you like to make on what's being presented to us?
Quick or few questions. Do the staff have to do anything, apply for this, or it just happens?
No, if it's approved by if the board approves this procedure, then no, it would be a benefit that they earn.
Okay.
Per position.
You mentioned up to 13 days. Can you explain that side of it?
Well, there are 13 days built into the calendar and the snow days, and so
Gotcha.
it's based on those. Those are the only days that anyone would be paid out for those. Beyond that, we would have to go into forgiveness days from the state and that sort of thing. So it's based on those 13 days. We haven't, knock on wood, gone beyond that in my tenure, so hopefully we will not.
And can they apply for unemployment and as well as get this benefit?
No, because under unemployment, the days have to be consecutive, and they're not. So we're instituting our own local unemployment benefit just to these positions to try and help them. They're being penalized once because there's no work for them to do and it snowed. So we don't want to penalize them again because those days aren't consecutive.
Okay, so at this point in the school year, we seem to be past all the inclement weather. Hopefully, barring any kind of Mother Nature getting mad at us for something. Where do we stand? How many days are we at now?
So 9? Are we at 9? I think we're at 9. I'd have to go back and check my records, but yeah, she's saying 8, but we'll check. I'll check that. So, bless you. So yeah, so that's if it is 8, then that means that they're due 3 days. They will, under this procedure, they would get 3 more days of pay. So the waiting period of the first 5, remember, they've worked extra in the past, they worked extra 15 minutes, they banked all that time, and then the board gave them 5. We're already counting that 5, we're already paying them up front for that 15. So they really haven't lost that 5. We're just adding
Okay.
beyond 5, a benefit that they didn't have before. So they're actually gonna get more money than they would have before, because under the old policy, if the board would have just given 5 days and we have 8, that would be 3 days they would get nothing. Under this procedure, they're gonna get some unemployment pay or based on that rate for 3 days.
Okay, so help me understand this. A lot of times, when school's over, the last day of school, parapros and aides don't work, in the summer. They don't get paid during the summer. I understand that. A lot of times these days are deducted at the last check. So will these 3 days, 3 to 4 days that we have here, will they be added to that last check? Or is that the first check in June? Or how does that work? I know we've gone direct deposit across the board. Maybe, we're not all the way across the board, I don't think, but, would that be their last check and they're still gonna get some, because some would miss an entire paycheck?
So that'll be done at the end of the year, because we don't know, like I said, we could have a tornado day or something like that. So we wait till the end of the year and then we tally all those up. So there are 5 days that are coming off automatically, but if the board paid those back as they had in the past, we've already front loaded that.
Right.
So that's already, those 5 days have been taken care of. So even though technically it's a waiting period, if it was unemployment, they would have a waiting period and they wouldn't get those 5 days. So we went ahead and front loaded that and paid them up front for the 15 minutes they were staying extra, because that was the correct accounting practice. So beyond that, any additional days, which at this point is 3 or 4, we'll double check, those will be added to them. It would have been money that they wouldn't have received under the old system. Okay. But it's going to be extra money.
And that's a portion of their current rate. It wouldn't be the full day's rate, right?
No, it's based on the rate that they would have received for unemployment. And that's what we liked about this, is it's based on a real procedure that's already enacted. We didn't just pull this out of the air. I think credit Ms. Rigsby for thinking this through and helping me get it on paper. But yeah, it's based on that. And so as that rate changes, that's what their rate. So it's not going to be their full rate of pay for the day, but it's more than they would have received under the previous practice.
Well, I think there's some things we need to talk about at budget time, and we need to get our parapros and our aides, we need to get that pay increased. There's the rate of pay is not where it needs to be, and I think I made that statement earlier. Our legislature has included too many things on education, and I think we need to pay these folks a living wage. Right now, I don't think they're making a living wage. To be if we have single households that are raising kids that are and a teacher's aide, and they're not doing it because of the money. They're doing it because they love the kids and they love to be involved in these kids' lives. I understand that, but I think when it comes budget time, I think we need to do some serious talking about increasing that hourly rate for those folks. To me, that just makes sense.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Stromberger. Let's get back to the matter on the table, and that's the inclement weather wage assistant benefit that's being recommended to us, and this is being recommended for approval, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this is a benefit.
I have one other question. So we're talking about the 15 minutes a minute ago that they're working. So they're working, teachers' aides, all those folks are working 7 1/4 hours a day. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so my Doyle math adds up. That's about 6.2 days that they're getting paid, correct? For a 180-day contract. So that's not going to be deducted out of those 3 that are going to be. They're going to get that way. They're already earning that 7 1/4 hours on their check now.
Yes.
And then if this is approved tonight, we will pay them an unemployment rate for up to however many days that we're out of school, over 5 days.
Yes.
Okay, all right, sounds great, thank you.
Mr. Chair, is there a budget impact here? Is this net zero or?
No, it'll be because we had snow days, we saved that money that wasn't paid out during that. So, and this won't be full payment of their daily rate of pay as well. So it won't be, it'd be money that we wouldn't have spent otherwise, but it was money that was budgeted and is there.
Any other questions, comments? Okay. I'd just like to say, Ms. Rigsby, Mr. Stromberger, Mr. Markham, thank you for working on this. I think it does provide clarity. It takes the pressure off the board to have to make a decision on paying people out of no fault of their own, but they're not working. And so it provides clarity on that. So I think it makes sense. It's not 100% reimbursed or what they would have gotten if they had been able to work, but it's also more than they would getting, and it takes the ambiguity out of it. You know what you're going to get, and that should help them plan and prepare. It should also take the pressure off the board and to be consistent in the way we handle that, and so it's not just whatever we decide to do this year.
One other question. Have we thought about the above and beyond extra time that these folks put in that maybe goes past the 15 minutes that they're required to be there?
I would speculate to say the answer on that, Mr. McDonald, would be no, because we're talking about snow day pay, and we're not talking about above and beyond pay.
Okay.
So, this is just an attempt to, show respect to a group of people that we know are working very hard and that are being disadvantaged by the fact that it snowed. But we respect all of our positions, all of our personnel, and that's why we're trying to be very careful about this and this incentive, because there are people that they're having to come to work on those snow days, and they're working very hard as well. And as I certainly think our teachers' aides are valuable, they're very important. As a principal, I understood just how important they were, and as a director, I understand that as well. But all of our personnel are important, and if we go adjusting pay scales, then we need to be ready to look at everybody's pay scales, because that's one thing in White County we've done well over the years. We win and lose as a team, and when we start singling out groups and saying this group's more important than another, that's when we've had some real difficult times. So but I'm always open to the board's wishes of looking at payroll and looking at scales. We've done a lot of work on that in that area over the past few years to make it, to be competitive, stay competitive, and we are. But always open to looking to increase that. But it would be something I'd want to look at across the board to make sure that we're respecting all of our employees in similar fashion.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that all of our teachers' aides, all of those folks that don't have the opportunity to come, know that they're valued and they're needed and they're wanted, and they need that help. And if it, a lot of times, if it wasn't for those teachers' aides and if it wasn't for those paraprofessionals, nurses, custodians, these kids wouldn't get as good an education as they were, because the classroom teacher can only do so much. And these folks are, if you've ever been in those schools, and I know everybody in this building has probably been in those schools, you see what those folks do, and I just think that we need to take care of them, and we need to make sure that we're keeping the best that we have out there. So that's all my comments.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. McDonald. I just want to say that that's where this came from. We were under no obligation to do anything. When those folks are hired, they know if it snows, you're not getting paid, and so the board is under no obligation, and the district was really under no obligation. But out of respect for these people, we wanted to make sure we did something, made some attempt to rectify this situation that is no fault of their own. So I appreciate your comments, and they're well received.
All right. back to the item on the table, inclement weather wage assistance benefit. Now, if you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I see this, we do have this, the purpose of this being a policy, but it's administrative policy, not board policy. But just like salary scales are policy, they're administrative policy, not board policy. Board approves them, but not administrative procedure. So this would be the same as administrative procedure, correct? Okay, so what we're doing though, because it's does include have a financial impact, the board is would be approving this benefit. So just make sure we're all clear that if we take action on this, that we're approving the benefit.
I have a clarifying question.
Yes, ma'am.
So because there's room in the adopted budget for the 25-26 school year, does this take effect on 25-26 school year paychecks, or does it have to wait till the 26-27 school year payroll?
That's another great question. Thank you for paying attention. We should be clear on that. But this policy would go into effect this year. And sorry, we did not make that clear, but this would go into effect this year, so we would not have to wait till the end of the year to decide what we want to do about snow day pay. It's all right. We're establishing that right now with this approval of this benefit. Okay. Are we clear on that? Okay. Great question. Any other questions or comments? Okay, if none, then I would entertain a motion to adopt the inclement weather wage assistant benefit as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Smith. To have a second. Second by Ms. Officer. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That leads us next to the next item on our agenda, and that's Chairman's comments. Our next school board meeting will be on May 7th here at the Board of Education. We'll have a work session at 5 o'clock and a regular board meeting at 6. Board members, just keep in mind that we have, when we get into the month of May, we have several activities coming up. A couple of graduations. Warrior Academy, as long as with our high school, and so we have some people that are looking forward to that very much. And then also keep in mind that we do have budget schedules for the latter part of May. So please check your calendar. If you have any questions, reach out to Mr. Drombarger on that. So that takes care of the chairman's comments. The next item is adjournment. Entertain a motion for adjournment. Motion. Have a second by Mr. McDonald and Mr. Smith. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Thank you. We will consider ourselves adjourned.